Hello, California State Parks. Thank you for joining us. My name's Erin, and I am the lead interpreter here at Redwood National and State Parks. And I am currently standing at Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. And we have a really exciting live stream to share with you all today. We wanted to introduce you to our burn team in the North Coast Redwoods District. And we want to share with you a little bit about a very innovative technique that they are using to help save old growth redwood trees. And before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that we have some devastating fires throughout California right now, and our hearts go out to all of the communities that are being affected by these fires. And even though fires can be devastating, there are also moments of heroism and gallantry that we get to see when fires like this break out throughout California. And that heroism, these stories can be in the shape of protecting lives, protecting structures, protecting historical and cultural resources, but it also can be applied to protecting natural resources. And California State Parks is charged with protecting the natural resources and historical and cultural resources within this incredible state of ours. And part of our story today is to tell you about how this crew helped save 6 old growth redwood trees just a few weeks ago using a very unique technique that we're actually going to demonstrate for all of you. So that's a quick overview of what we're doing today. Again, we appreciate you joining. Please feel free to put any comments or questions in the chat. If we can't address your questions during the broadcast, we'll make sure to come back and address them afterward. But you're not here to learn about me. You're here to learn about our amazing burn team. So I'm going to turn the camera around. I'm going to introduce you to them, and then we're going to interview a few specific people to help you get an idea of the story of how this burn team came to be and how this special technique was developed to help save these amazing redwoods. So I'm going to flip my camera. All right, hey, burn team. Yee! Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. So just so you all know, this burn team is gathered, and this is only a third of them. This burn team's gathered here today because they are conducting a training. Our burn teams are trained. They are certified. We're going to learn all about them. So thank you, burn team, for sticking around to say hi to the Facebook world. By the way, you're getting a lot of love and likes and hearts and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to start with Lathrop Leonard. And hi, Lathrop.
How are you doing, Erin?
Very well. So Lathrop, tell me a little bit about you. So what is your role here with State Parks?
So I'm the forester for the North Coast Redwoods District up here in basically Humboldt County and Delaware and a little bit of Mendocino County. As a forester, I wear a couple of different hats. A big part of my job is forest restoration and trying to improve the health and vigor of some of the degraded forests that we have inherited or purchased from other timber companies after logging and other activities has happened. And I also run the prescribed fire team for the park or for this district, and that involves, again, as you probably know about, we like to put the fire on the ground under our terms so that when wildfires come on other people's terms or on nature's terms, we're better able to handle them and they're not so destructive as those ones we've been seeing today.
Definitely. And you have a title. You are the burn boss. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm a burn boss. That's a specific designation which says that I've gone through enough training and have enough know-how so I can light fires under the right conditions. And I know how to do that safely to, again, return fire as a natural process and protect our resources both within the parks and from our neighbors.
And will you tell us a little bit, you were all just here, you've been here all day today. Tell us a little bit about the burn team and the training that our burn team receives and any certifications they may have so that they can be a part of this team.
Yeah, so we follow the same regulations as federal agencies as far as basic qualifications in order to participate in a fire, and that's for both prescribed fire as well as wildfire. Now, CAL FIRE, our sister agency, is in charge of fire suppression on state park lands, but they often need help with various things, especially in years like this when there's so much fire on the landscape. They just don't have enough people to get all things done that they need to get done. So in some cases, they'll turn over fires on parklands to us to manage if we have the capacity and the personnel.
Well, and with 280 state parks in California, we have quite a lot of beautiful, important lands that we're charged with protecting. So your part of your role is taking care of the lands up here.
That's right, and it's important to remember, wherever you are in California, I think you should think of it as fire is coming someday to where you are, and do you want it to come on nature's terms or on our terms? So we try to bring it on our terms, so when it comes in a way that we're not in control of, we're better able to keep it under control and to minimize the damage it will do to our resources. And again, a fire is a natural process. They've been around since time immemorial for these landscapes, and so they're adapted to it. But if you let it go for hundreds of years without any fire, then things change, and your world is no longer adapted to fire, and the fire is going to have a very different result on those lands than it would otherwise.
It seems very thematic. I'm going to pan over for just a moment to let the Facebook audience see, as Lathrop's describing, this area right here within Prairie Creek Redwoods State Park, this prairie has been a spot where some version of prescribed burning has been happening for thousands of years. And the original stewards of these lands, the Yurok people, conduct prescribed burns as a way of keeping important areas like this, prairies, clear of brush, because these are areas that they depend on, that animals depend on. So everything you're saying is very accurate. And it, like you said, it has been going on for thousands of years.
That's right. And you're right. Just like so many parts of California, the Yurok and other Native Americans manage these lands for various food and tools and other resources that they were looking for. And they used fire as one of their main tools in order to manage that land. It was around the 1850s where they lost the ability to manage this land that they had been for so long. And it wasn't until really the mid-1980s when state parks reintroduced fire to this particular prairie, and we've been burning it ever since. And we've been watching it. We do a lot of monitoring it, and it's pretty clear what happens is when we don't burn, woody vegetation starts to encroach into these prairies and converts them from a grassland to a forest. And so all those organisms that are relying on the grasslands are no longer able to find habitat there. In some of our parks, we've lost over half of our grasslands to encroachment by Douglas fir and other woody vegetation. So we're trying to reclaim some of that land, get it back into more of a historic context, and at least maintain what we already have, so we don't lose more to fire suppression.
Definitely. And I'm going to because it is a beautiful day here in the prairie, as we like to say. And if you ever have the opportunity to come here, which we hope you will, is you are looking out at this open, vast prairie, but you're looking that this prairie is bordered on both sides by the world's tallest trees, the old growth redwoods. And often in certain seasons, you'll be seeing a huge herd of elk taking advantage of this prairie, and the fact that it hasn't been encroached upon by trees and other things. And speaking of old growth redwood, Lathrop, one of the things that makes these trees so powerful and awe-inspiring is that they are the tallest living things in the world, but that also makes it incredibly difficult to fight a fire in an old growth redwood tree. Can you speak to that?
That's right. So they are so tall, and we have a limited number of tools to fight them with. And kind of the standard way to fight fires is, first you can dig hand lines around fires to get rid of fuel for them to burn, so you can stop it with that. We also spray water on things, right? And that's a great way to put out a fire. And that works really well for fires on the ground in general. But again, these trees are over 300 feet tall. If you're standing on the ground with a hose, you cannot get enough pressure to get it up anywhere close to that. It's really, the first 30 or so feet that you're able to effectively put out that way. We do, and in those cases, sometimes we'll call in a helicopter or an airplane to come and drop buckets of water from up above. And that works reasonably well for the very tip tops of the trees. It doesn't always put them out, but at least cool the fire down sufficiently. But all that middle ground, you know, the water from above won't really penetrate that canopy very well. So it's really hard to get anything to the spot that's often burning in the middle of the tree. And so that's where we've had to get a little bit more creative. The standard way to deal with that, if you're working for most fire agencies, is, well, if you've got the time and space, you can monitor it and watch the thing burn and make sure it doesn't throw embers to somewhere else and start another wildfire. But you know, that's not always feasible, especially on times like this. All those crews are really in demand to either go to another fire or to be ready for another fire. And so they don't have the luxury of hanging around to wait for that fire to go out. So the next resort for them is to cut the tree down. And you can imagine when you've got 10, 15, 20-foot diameter trees, 1,000, 2,000 years old, that's obviously the last thing we want to do. You know, of course, in our mission to preserve these legacies, and again, like you said, there's only about 5% of these trees left in the world. We're trying to make more of them, not less. So we do whatever we can to protect these other trees. So some of these other ways to deal with these problem trees, I'd like to show you a little bit about how
I would love to see it. And we're going to, so Facebook friends that are joining, thanks so much for tuning in. It's great to see so many people watching. We're going to walk over here and we're going to meet a few other people that have been key players in the development of the burn team here at North Coast Redwoods District, and the development of a really special technique that is used to fight fires in a redwood tree when a basic hose from the ground isn't going to cut it, and when a water drop from a helicopter isn't going to cut it either. And the work that these people have done has allowed for many old growth redwoods to survive fires that otherwise they would not have had a chance to survive. So I'm just going to stop and say, let you meet a few people. Hello there.
Hello.
What's your name?
I'm Stephen Underwood.
Hey, Stephen, tell us about the role you've played on this team for many years.
I've served as the burn boss on burns, and also come out and helped deal with fires in the big trees.
And the big trees. Thank you for the work that you have done to help protect these old growth redwoods. You know, it's interesting. We were at one point the number one threat to old growth redwood trees when, you know, through logging practices. When I say the we, I mean the collective. But here we are in California state parks, and we've now become stewards of these trees in many ways. But this technique that you all have developed here, which we're about to show you, you're allowing these trees to withstand fire because that's what they have been trained, and they have the resistance and the adaptations. They know how to do this. Mm-hmm. So they know how to survive fire, and now we give them an opportunity to continue to thrive and live for thousands of years.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So we look at each one of these individual trees as a very valuable resource, and so we go to quite long lengths to preserve each one.
Definitely. So, all right, we're going to walk over. Y'all are wondering, what are they doing? This is what we are about to show you. So how in the world do you fight a fire that's 200 feet up, let's just say, where you can't, the helicopter drop's not going to get it. The hose from the bottom of the ground is not going to get it. They use this incredible system that was, if I understand it correctly, was developed right in this district. And I think I have one more person I'm going to come over just to bug and see if he will introduce himself. Hi.
Good afternoon. How's it going today?
Wonderful. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful.
Will you, what's your name, and tell us about your role you've played in the burn team here and this awesome thing we're about to check out?
Well, my name's Alan Wigman, and retired state park ranger. Worked for state parks for 20 years, the last 15 years at Humboldt Redwood State Park. And down at Humboldt Redwoods, we've got a lot of redwood trees, a lot of big old growth ones. And one problem we were having down there is fires, and we call goose pens or basal hollows, which is basically a big hollowed out area in the base of a redwood tree that is extremely difficult to put out. And in about 2005, we had one down in Stevens Grove, which is kind of in southern Humboldt County. And we had a hard time putting it out. And CAL FIRE came down and tried to put it out, but it was a 17-foot diameter tree that was just burning inside. And I'd heard of some different techniques of using sticks, tying or taping hoses onto sticks and shoving them up, or using PVC pipe and putting it up. But when you're basically in an oven, plastic PVC pipe isn't going to last, and a wood pipe isn't going to last either. So we kind of came up with this other idea of using galvanized pipe, and I kind of show you what we've done here, and then we've gone from this to pulling stuff up into trees to put out the fire.
And we are going to demo all of that for you, but we have one more character that we will introduce to you in just a well, actually, he's over here. We're going to go say hi real quick. So what happens if you can't get the galvanized pipe inside the goose pen? What happens if you maybe have an issue getting a line and hose connected into the tree? By the way, stay tuned, everyone, in case you're like, but I want to see the demo. It's coming. What happens if none of those work? You introduce the tree climber. And yes, I am going to come over here, Wi-Fi dependent, to introduce you to Yanni Rivas, who is one of our climbers that works for California State Parks. And so Yanni, hey.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Great. Yanni, tell us about your role sometimes that you have to play, which is climbing up to very, very high heights of the tallest trees in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty, the work that also we learn from the skills that we have here from the past of the bosses here in the state park. And I'm going to mention Don Beers. He the one that start, teaching me how to climb trees. And like the passion, when you're a kid, climbing trees, it's great. But, on the realistic, you see hundreds of feet up there and this, giant and historical trees. It's just, phenomenal. And I got a lot of passion about protecting the trees, and that's why I do this. And don't take it around, I have fun. But, it is fun, but also it's a dangerous job. And we're here to protect these trees, for the future and the future. And we're gonna try to do whatever we can to keep protecting the trees.
I love that you mention the connection to, when we're kids, we love climbing trees, but you're only climbing like 20 feet up if you're a kid. How high do you think is the highest you've climbed up in a redwood tree?
There was a time that I've been over 200 feet.
Oh my gosh. And
it's a different world up there.
I bet. And the fact that you're climbing up these trees to help save these trees, this is pretty special. So anyways, I'm going to just thank you. By the way, all of you that have introduced yourselves, Facebook is giving you lots of love. But Yanni has, speaking of being a kid at heart, Yanni has the world's greatest slingshot in his hand right now. And that slingshot is actually utilized as part of this unique firefighting technique that we are about to explain to you. So I'm going to pan back over, and gentlemen, take it away. Talk to us. Show us what we are demoing. I believe we're heading back over, and we are going to first look at what happens when a fire is burning inside of a goose pen. And for those of you that aren't familiar with a goose pen, it's a hollowed out area inside of a large, in this case, old growth redwood tree. So we're going to need you to use your imagination, because we don't have a goose pen right here, and that's not a redwood. But imagine there would be a big hole inside this tree, and a fire is burning inside of this goose pen. And talk to us. What do we do?
What do we do? That's a good question. Last thing we want to do is cut the tree down. So, like I mentioned, we had heard of some other systems of how to do it, put it out. And again, on a goose pen, it's basically a hollowed out. You can actually walk into the tree. It's really kind of cool. If you get a chance to come up in the redwoods, you can walk into it. Someone big enough you can lay down in there. So I know you can see through this tree. In reality, you can't. Imagination time.
Our Facebook friends, it's time to channel your inner child. We're using our imagination. So this is a goose
This is
pen.
an opening here. The back is part of the tree still closed up. So what we came up with back in about 2005, when we had a real big one down in Miranda, Southern Humboldt, was to use a system basically of pipes. And it's kind of unique because we're talking about about a 4-foot length here, but we can get inside the goose pen. If I were to climb in, then I can actually assemble the pipes together and keep on building a system up higher, up into the tree, by connecting more and more pipes.
And believe it or not, it does go that high. So there are several goose pens that you can find throughout redwood parks in the state that the hollowed out area inside of the tree, you could park a car in there almost. And they're tall and they're big. And by the way, that tree is alive. It's thriving because redwood trees are so well adapted to fire. So we've got this galvanized pipe. You've added some length to it. The fire's burning. What are you doing inside of the goose pen if the fire's burning?
The fire's burning. We're in there with it. We'll actually hook up a little nozzle so we can hook up a hose, which we already kind of have a makeshift one set up here. So we'll hook up to our fire engine. We've got the hose. I've got a little adapter. And at the top, we will actually put a little sprinkler. So again, quickly add that to it. You can see, and again, I'm in there, and the whole thing is burning, and a lot of times there's embers coming down. But I've got a strap, and this, as you can see, holds the pipe nice and perpendicular for me. Once we get it all set up, put fire out, we need to get rid of the heat. We need to get rid of the, add some water to cool it down. No problem, we're hooked up. We come down, we turn on the valve.
What? Whoa! Hey, you didn't tell me to wear my rain jacket.
Voila! Welcome to the North Coast.
That's awesome. What a cool technique and what an innovative approach.
It's something we not using a whole lot of water, but it's something that provides, it increases the humidity in the tree, it cools it down, and with not a whole lot of water ends up putting the fire out.
Without having to cut down this tree. And I'm just, if you're joining, we're reiterating, these are techniques that California State Parks employs to make sure that the remaining old growth that's left in the world stays standing. And because of these techniques, you did not have to cut down those trees.
Not have to cut them down, and last year spent 3 weeks down in Armstrong Redwoods National Reserve putting out the redwood tree fires, goose pens, and ones up in the tree using this system here without having to use a lot of water. And we'll have a little water tank we can take with us, so it can be portable. We can move it wherever we need to, and get them out without using a lot of water. Just a little bit of patience, and save the redwoods.
Aw, thank you for saving the redwoods. And patience does pay off in this case. And speaking of, our burn teams statewide, we have burn programs throughout the state of California because California State Parks invest in burn teams throughout multiple districts, and burn teams just like the ones that you're meeting right here. And what makes our burn team special is that they are uniquely situated to have an intimate understanding of the parks that they're charged with protecting. So in part, it's because, these people know so well about goose pens and redwoods that they were able to think on the fly and find a way of setting up a system that allowed these trees to be protected. And without, their help going down to Armstrong Redwoods, I know our fire team also, our burn team went down to Santa Cruz to assist there as well. All right, Lathrop. So what happens if the goose pen is fine, but there's a fire and it's burning way, way, way up there, but your hose can't get to it? What happens?
So let me back up to the goose pen, because there's one other thing about the goose pen I just wanted to mention, is that crawling up into there, Alan said, you know, it's full of smoke and fire. It's not a very healthy place to be breathing. And it also often rains down embers on the head of somebody in there. So again, it's not the safest thing to do is to fight the fire with a fire right over your head.
No.
You've got a hose in your hand, right? So again, we're always looking at safety first, not just for our fire crew, but for the public at large. We'd rather put a pipe in there. If embers fall on that, we're not too worried about it, right? No harm done. And similarly, we look at these trees as, okay, well, if we can't reach it with all these pipes, what's the next best way to get water up there? Ropes and hoses. So we can get a rope up into a tree and then use that to pull a hose up with a nozzle, just like
So how in the world do you get a rope to get way up there? And by the way, again, we're using these 2 demo trees here that are not old growth redwoods because they're closest to our Wi-Fi tower.
That's right. We've got so many great goose pin trees within 100 yards of us.
Yep.
Well, we've got no Wi-Fi over there.
Yes. So one of
do with what we can.
the benefits of a redwood forest is because they're so tall, any cellular signal usually gets forget about it.
Right.
So yeah.
Back to your question.
Yes.
So that really brings us back to Yanni. And
Okay.
He's gonna show us a little bit about how you can get that rope up high into a tree.
All right. So now we are reintroducing the adult version of a slingshot that Yanni gets to use as a tool to help put out fires in old growth redwoods. So Yanni, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and get some close-ups here, and I'll step aside because safety first.
Yeah, show them what's in your hand, Yanni.
All right, so what do you got in your hand?
So I got a weight. It's 16 pounds, 16 ounces. It's 1 pound, and it's enough weight so the line, that we shoot up there, we're gonna be able to come back down to the ground because otherwise they'll get stuck up there.
Okay.
And then we'll put it here, and then we'll shoot it up on the limbs. And this is one of the devices that we use, but we got multiple, devices we can use, and they are really effective for the heights that we have here on the redwood, so we can get those ropes up there.
All right, so we're now watching Yanni Rivas demonstrate the slingshot that is used to help get the rope above the branches high up into the canopy.
Ready?
Ready. Wow. All right, so success on his first try. I think he might have done this before. And so you get the rope, it gets up and over the branch, and then I would imagine now is the process of getting the hose connected.
Bring another rope because we can get a good grip. So and then after the second rope, and then we'll hook up the hoses to go up there.
So,
all right.
You can imagine if we need to get the hose up 200 or 300 feet up into a tree, this is a little tiny rope, and we may have to pull like the Dickens to get it up there, because it's going to hit a lot of other branches, and every branch it hits is a little bit more friction, and before you know it, there's been times where we've actually, when there fires near a road or something, we hook the rope up to a truck and we start pulling, and we use that to pull the hose up. But we'll give you a little bit more simplistic of a demonstration right over here with Stephen.
All right, Stephen, take it away.
And Stephen, again, it's you kind of got the gist. He was the burn boss in this district before me, so a lot of what I know how to do, I learned from this guy right here. So it's really great to have him back and still helping us out with the burns.
Definitely. It's pay it forward. Take advantage of the knowledge that has come before you. Okay, Stephen.
So once the rope's been shot through the tree, hopefully gets on one of those high branches, comes back down, we're in a position where we can pull a rope, attach a heavier rope, and then pull that up in the tree. So that's what we've done here. Earlier today we shot a line that way up in that tree, then had it come down on the other side. We've hooked up a sprinkler head and I tied the rope to it. And so we're going to be able to lift that up.
And this is in part, so look at the crew over here. Oh, pardon.
Yeah, look at them, they're working hard.
Lost my phone there for a second. But so they're pulling this sprinkler system that's attached to a hose.
Right there.
And what they're doing too is they're communicating with each other. They probably have someone whose eyes would be on where the fire is located in the tree. And when they know that they're in the spot where the fire is burning, then they stop. Okay, continue.
All right, well now we're going to turn the water.
Oh, more water. Here we go.
Water.
Here we go. Yes, thanks for the warning this time. All right, let's see if we're going to be able. Whoa! There is. Wow. Yes.
So we can apply, and we have some control over where that nozzle is pointing by putting some torque on the hose itself. You can see it's pretty random otherwise.
So, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat. I'm going to repeat what you're saying because we're a little bit far away because I didn't bring rain gear. But they were saying so they can get control over where the nozzle is spraying by putting some torque on the rope. So they have, and you imagine we're demonstrating something to you that's only maybe 60 feet up in the air. But this system we're showing you was deployed at Jedediah Smith Redwood State Park 2-3 weeks ago to help put out fires burning in 6 old growth redwood trees. And if this system was not deployed, potentially those trees would have maybe had to be cut down. And they weren't. They were saved and they get to live on for thousands of years because of this system. And you can actually even see they've put the torque on the rope. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to get my lingo down. They're putting the torque on the rope so that they actually have now harnessed the spray to be in one focused area.
And the torque on this case is on the hose. And you can see once you turn down the volume of water, you can send some water towards the camera person.
Don't want to send the water towards the camera person.
There we go. All right. Now, if this doesn't give you the amount of control that you need to get the water on the tree, for instance, exactly the spot you want, we can bring that nozzle back down and hook some guidelines to that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Go ahead and drop the hose on this side.
You want to turn the water off?
Yes. Unless you want to get wet.
Hey, well, I'm already part of this adventure now. As long as our camera angles and lenses don't have water on them.
Okay, huh?
And yes, Kathleen, your comment is one of our viewers, fire crew, has said, I'm so thankful for all of you. California needs you. And I think that sentiment is echoed by all of us. All right, what's going on here?
Okay, so now let's do another hypothetical. This rope that we've got in the tree, sometimes we spend all day or 2 days to get the rope placed where we want it. It's a big deal. It doesn't always work. Sometimes we're shooting multiple ropes and half of them are failures. So we want to make the best of the rope we have. And so under this hypothetical, let's say that now this tree behind you, it's on fire as well, same kind of problem. Rather than start over with a new rope, we're going to try to use this rope on this tree to put out our fire in that tree over there.
Huh.
So I'll show you how that works. First of all, I just tied 2 ropes to it so we can kind of guide it a little bit. And this will be easier to show once you've got it set up. So let us finish setting
Please
it up.
go ahead. And can I ask a question while you're finishing setting this up? So for any of you that are just tuning in and watching, first of all, thanks for watching. What we're doing here is we're demoing a very unique firefighting technique that was developed here, actually in North Coast Redwoods District, to help put out fires in the tallest trees in the world, where a hose could not get to that fire from the ground because it's too tall or too high up, and a helicopter drop could not get to that fire because it's somewhere in the middle. So this is a perfect example that I'm going to show you here. These are old growth redwood trees in the distance. So if the fire was at the top of the canopy, no problem, helicopter drop. If the fire was at the bottom on the ground, then a hose. But what happens when it's right here? And so what we're demoing today with you is this unique system that was developed here that uses the coolest slingshot. That is there a better name for that? Okay, so the slingshot to help get a line up and through the branches of a tree where they then pull a hose up and a sprinkler. And so we're now discussing how they use a line that they would put in this tree to actually allow them
Okay, so here,
to get over here.
so here's what we do. Again, we've got multiple ropes here, and I'll need one more person. Yanni, okay. So Stephen is using his rope to pull it forward to the left. I'm going to use my rope to pull it forward to the right. And Yanni is using this back rope to point the nozzle where we want it, right? Yeah, well, I think it'll get up a little bit. Let's get it close, and then Walter is going to get that a little more elevation for us. Okay, I think we're probably ready. Stephen, you want to pull it a little tighter? And then Yanni, you know you're pointing that right at me, right? Way down. This is why you don't want to make your crew members angry at you, right?
Right?
Okay, so of course this is really low to the ground, but you get the idea. We've just moved it towards another tree, and I think we're ready for water now.
You want to move it higher? I think Walter's ready to pull up.
Yeah, Walt, you want to pull up?
Pull up. Okay, going up in the tree.
Whoop.
Whoop.
Okay, stop it.
Huh. Wow, so how innovative, right? Because the likelihood that one tree is going to just stay on fire without casting.
Redwoods, we think about the fog and how wet everything is, and often the ground is wet enough that fires don't spread very well on the ground. But if you think about the top of the tree, it's up there in the sun and the wind. So sometimes you have a tree that's moist and fine at the bottom, but very dry at the top. So if one of these trees catches on fire up high, the wind blows and it's going to blow embers from one tree to the next. So sometimes in old growth redwood situations, you have a fire that travels from treetop to treetop with very little fire activity on the ground. And this is one of those methods that we could use to help prevent that.
Wow, this is so cool. Let me just jump in. We're going to be wrapping up this broadcast just in a moment. If you are just joining us, we hope you'll revisit and start from the beginning to get an understanding of what we're really doing here, which is showcasing an incredibly special technique developed here in North Coast Redwoods District to use a sprinkler system, some rope pulleys that allows our burn team to focus their firefighting efforts on protecting redwoods so they don't have to be cut down if they do happen to start on fire. I have one last question, but I know the man holding Yanni, where do you come into all this? When do you have to climb the tree that's next to the burning tree?
When we can, we have a different techniques, but when we can have, we have a neighbor tree close to the tree that's on fire, and then they say, okay, it's safe, so I can go up there if the fire it's really intense, because fire we need to pull them down first, and then we'll go up there, we spray water, we'll cool them down, and then in that process, and we got the sprinkle, and then we can leave the sprinkle there for days, months, weeks, or whatever time it takes, to actually put the fire out. So
Right.
that's when with that time I'm coming and climb the tree and, make sure that fire is not intense. Make sure we're not gonna have crown fire because Stephen you know, the first thing that we told me, it's really important, you know, to, you know, make sure we're going to control, you know, those fires up there on the top of the trees, because if we have a crown fire, we are in trouble. So that's where, you know, the time we come in.
Right. And what Yanni just described and what we all have just been here demonstrating for you out there in Facebook land is what this group of people here and so many more have just spent the last 3 weeks doing in Jedediah Smith Redwood State Park. And if you're not familiar with that incredible park, it is located in the very northern part of California along the coast, where there are some beautiful, old, tall redwoods. And because of this team, 6 old growth redwood trees were able to survive a fire. And it took patience, and it took dedication, and it took a dedicated effort from this district to have a burn team. And thank you to these gentlemen, the rest of our burn team, and the support of California State Parks. We were able to prevent a fire from A, spreading, but B, costing the lives of trees that have been around for thousands of years, and we want to see continue to be around for thousands of more years. So any parting thoughts, gentlemen, before I turn the camera around and say goodbye to our Facebook audience?
One thing that Alan came up with for his Dismal Hollows is to use the rotating offsetting sprinkler. And we found that very effective as well.
Was that what just doused me with some water earlier in the earlier part of the broadcast? Yes, that did work really well. That was very effective, Alan. Yeah, exactly. You know, you never know how you're going to get it. So you know what? I'm going to turn this camera around. As you can see, we've been maintaining distance during this whole broadcast to keep ourselves safe. We really hope that all of you out there are staying safe as well, whether it's fires or our pandemic. You know, we get to come together during times of difficulty. And again, our hearts go out to anyone out there being affected by our current wildfires in California. And we wanted you to just know that here at California State Parks, we are doing everything in our power, including implementing large slingshots, ropes, sprinkler systems, and even tree climbers to help protect the incredible natural, cultural, and historical resources that you have charged us with protecting as part of our California State Parks. So we appreciate you watching. We appreciate your support. We hope you stay safe, and we hope you will come and visit your California State Park soon. So shall we say goodbye, everyone?
Bye.
Bye.